Hello?
Hello, this is the Fox Network. Yeah, we just want to say we are thrilled to have you with us, big guy. Wait a minute, did I call John Madden that stupid cartoon critic?
Some cartoons get canceled, others get close to being canceled, but then they're brought back within a short amount of time. And that's what we're looking at today. These aren't reboots or revivals, but instead shows that lasted another season or two, or 20, past their expiration date. With spoilers in no particular order, these are my top 10 cartoons that were almost canceled.
NICKtendo.
The Ed, Edd and Eddy episode, Take This Ed and Shove It, ends with the revelation that the whole series up to that point has been nothing but a couple of geezers reminiscing about old childhood memories.
It was all just stories? Memories from the past? We really are old!
At one point, this was going to be the series finale, intended to cap things off after 4 seasons and 52 episodes total. But since it was incredibly successful, Cartoon Network ordered 2 more seasons and 4 specials. Season 5 saw some significant changes be made to keep the adventures of the Ed Boys from growing stale. Summer had finally come to an end, and the whole cast was now forced to deal with the trials and tribulations of middle school. It's said that with any great character, you can throw them into any situation, and they'll still be entertaining to watch. While it's been proven in animation that this is not always the case, it rings true here. The new settings certainly brought some fresh scenarios to the table, but the core of the show was still on the scams and hijinks. There weren't any unnecessary character turns or any new characters introduced, and while the latter choice seemed odd at first, they kinda made it work.
Principal! Sir! I surrender!
The biggest change in my book was the switch from cell to digital animation. So much more detail was packed into every expression, and the new fall-themed color palettes and character outfits made the visuals incredibly appealing. At the end of the day, Season 5 was still another season of Ed, Edd and Eddy, and that's why I think it was still received by fans considerably well. It avoided so many of the traps that this season's premise could have led to, and I think that it was almost as good as it could have been, considering that 4 seasons came before this. The proposed Season 6 would barely come to be, as only 1 episode was fully produced before production was halted in favor of making a big TV movie as a send-off instead, which was also great. It's almost hard to believe that the quality and consistency that Ed, Edd and Eddy achieved across its decade-long run wasn't a scam after all. Up until the mid-2000s, Disney Channel had an unspoken restriction when it came to their TV shows. No series could go over 65 episodes. With there being 65 weekdays in each quarter of the year, an entire series could be rerun 4 times throughout a calendar year. This rule came about when television schedules were built around syndication and consistent patterns, but the invention of DVRs and on-demand services made it obsolete. While a few Disney shows had broken the rule before, Kim Possible marked the end of its enforcement. The TV movie So the Drama, or STD for short, was intended to be the final bow for the crime-fighting action comedy, but the fans wanted more and so did the crew. 7 months later, in 2005, Disney caved to the demand and ordered a 4th season.
And no smug villain can hide from...
Impossible!
And boyfriend?
I seriously doubt that.
No, dude, it's true. Really.
It would see a couple of changes to the status quo, like aging up Kim's younger brothers, pairing Ron up with his teacher at a new job, and actually see Kim and Ron grow together as a couple after making things official in STD. They also did a parody of Morgan Spurlock's documentary Super Size Me, where Ron mutates into a Hulk-like monster after eating too much fast food. You gotta love that relevant and hard-hitting social commentary.
So take it from me.
Who's he talking to?
Stay out of large vats of mysterious chemicals. Keep your DNA intact and stay unmutated. You'll be glad you did.
Not every single change worked, but all the attempts to keep Kim Possible fresh made this season my favorite. I can see why some people would not love every new element, like Kim's new mission suit, which is suspiciously midriff-free, but I think that it's a much better way to update the series compared to what Disney did with it recently. The final 2 episodes were especially fantastic, raising the stakes and bringing all of the characters to a satisfying conclusion, except for the villain Monkey Fist. They pretty much killed him off, and I have no idea how they got away with that. When Disney bought Star Wars in 2012, one of the first things to change would be how it was represented through animation. After 5 seasons and loads of success, the Clone Wars animated series was canceled with many episodes unreleased or scrapped in the middle of development. A similar thing happened with the Marvel cartoons that were running when Disney bought the company in 2009, and focus was shifted to a new animated series that was more associated with Disney's brand and tone. But unlike those Marvel cartoons, not only is the Clone Wars still considered canon, but it's also getting a new 12-episode season later this year. Although between its cancellation and revival, this Star Wars spin-off still found ways to stick around. There was a 12-episode Season 6 released on Netflix, comic miniseries and novels that adapted unproduced stories about Asajj Ventress and Darth Maul, as well as unfinished animatics released online that gave a rough idea about how 2 4-episode arcs would have played out. With Lucasfilm's animation team busy with Star Wars Rebels, it's great that they still found a way for all these stories to still see the light of day. Even if Dave Filoni, series creator and rootin' tootin' cowboy you don't want to mess with, looked really distraught when talking about the legacy of his show years ago.
You feel, and just, what if we... And lit.
Seeing the Clone Wars come back is great and all, but there's other Star Wars animated projects I'd rather see get another shot. The sketch comedy series Star Wars Detours by the Robot Chicken Crew was completely shelved after the Disney buyout. And yeah, it doesn't look too great, but who wouldn't want to see Seth MacFarlane voice the Emperor with his Quagmire voice?
I totally saw the Emperor dancing the night away with 3 Twi'lek models.
When watching Change Your Mind, Steven Universe's Season 5 finale, I couldn't shake the feeling that this could have been the series finale, between the callbacks to the earliest episodes and also the main conflict of the entire show being resolved. Well, series supervising director and creator of the classic Doug evolution chart, Ian Jones-Quartey, had this to say on Steven's future moving forward.
Change Your Mind isn't the end of the franchise Steven Universe, but Change Your Mind is the end to this particular story that we started writing back in 2011. Like, Change Your Mind definitely makes a definitive statement on Steven and who he is and what he thinks he is and how he feels about it. And moving forward from now, it's going to be different.
From what I can deduce, the original plan was to end the series after Season 5, as that length fit the scope of the story that they wanted to tell. But after Cartoon Network saw its rapidly growing popularity, they decided to keep it going, and now it looks like the Crooniverse plans to retool it a bit moving forward. If I had any say in the matter, I think it would be cool if Steven Universe took influence from Kim Possible's 4th season by having slight shifts in the main focus and timeline when it continues, as that was a great way to continue a long-running show instead of turning it into a completely different show. But if they did want to create a sequel series, there's loads of interesting directions that they could take it in. My top ideas are Steven Universe Alien Force, Steven Universe Babies, and a natural continuation of the original series, with the only difference being that Steven is now voiced by Seth MacFarlane. Come on, we all know that he has the vocal chops to tackle anything.
Philip, have you lost weight?
Sonic X is thought of by most as a poorly animated anime with a bad English dub and a slew of generic human characters that the more interesting video game cast is forced to share the spotlight with. However, the 3rd season was a pretty considerable step in the right direction. Oh sure, the English dub is kind of worse in some parts, there's many drawn-out action sequences, and the animation still has its ups and downs, but it manages to trim a lot of fat from the show, and make the premise of Sonic the Hedgehog in space one of the best written things from the franchise. Episodes where the value of Sonic's heroism is brought into question, or where Tails is forced to murder his own girlfriend for the sake of the universe, are legitimately dark and thoughtful, but it's a bit sad that this season was never planned to originally happen in the first place. Despite Sonic X being an anime and not a cartoon, the reasons for its extended run have mainly American origins. While the series came and went in the land of the rising sun, here in the United States it was a smash hit. And that was enough of a reason for 4Kids Entertainment to commission one more batch of episodes. I believe the intended audience for Season 3 was considered when it was produced, which could explain the drastic change in setting and focus, one that, ironically, gets rid of some of the more Americanized elements. This includes a prominent riff on the US president, side characters with American names and tropes, so many hallmarks of generic live-action adaptations of beloved 80s and 90s cartoon icons, and wow did I speak too soon.
My kids all look up to Sonic. How in the world am I going to explain to them that he's become a bad guy now?
There are many constants in this world. Water's wet, the sky is blue, The Simpsons will never end, and I will never be good at inserting ad breaks into my videos. However, there once was a time when The Simpsons came very close to kicking the bucket. In October 2011, Fox announced that despite the series being a success after 23 seasons, it could no longer be produced on its current financial model. According to longtime writer Mike Reiss, the budget had been rising little by little for long enough that it could threaten the profitability of the show. With the end potentially in sight, a final episode was written for The Simpsons, Holidays of Future Past, a Christmas episode set 30 years from the present, revealing what was on the horizon for all of the characters and also thematically tying back to the very first episode. I've always thought of it as my favorite Simpsons flash forward episode, but I've never thought of it as the Simpsons series finale, and that's because it wasn't. All of the writers, actors, animators, and crew members took a pay cut to keep the show on the air. Holidays of Future Past aired 7 years ago, and besides some rumors that surrounded the Disney-Fox buyout, The Simpsons has continued to produce new episodes without a hitch.
Wow, how did this show stay so fresh?
The legacy of the series hasn't even sunk too much farther since season 23. In fact, that season has quite a few episodes that people point to as being major low points. But at this point, it doesn't feel like there ever could be a world without The Simpsons.
The Simpsons are going to Delaware!
I want to see Wilmington.
I want to visit a screen door factory.
This will be the last season.
Uh-oh, back to the lab again. Oh no, back to the lab again. We messed up.
Even years after cancellation, reruns of Dexter's Laboratory gave Cartoon Network record high ratings, giving them enough of a reason to revive the show in 2001, despite the series creator having moved on to create some groundbreaking action show. I think it was called Samurai Quack. A new team was brought in to produce seasons 3 and 4 of Dexter's Lab, much of who would go on to do seasons 5 and 6 of the Powerpuff Girls. While this run was decent overall, it didn't compare to the original one bit.
In the lab of tomorrow, beakers and bottles have been replaced with bottles and beakers.
Wait, that is not even funny.
They're just doing my job for me, aren't they? I'm not the biggest Dexter's Lab fan to begin with, but this revival is something truly special. The title cards were either black screens or recycled from a set of 4 images. Episodes would have far too many drawn-out gags, crashed and burned in its attempts at gross-out humor, and tried to focus entire episodes around the shallow sidecast, much of which were simplified to their most annoying traits. The new art direction was kind of appealing, but some of the backgrounds were ruined by ugly colors and paint effects, and the look doesn't fit the old character designs. What kind of diet did Dexter's dad go on? Personally, I want to know how I can bring my waistline down to where my knees were. If this confused and directionless era of Dexter's Laboratory should be remembered for anything, its episodes where an anime villain kidnaps and tortures an imaginary gopher, Dexter turns the whole world into potato.png, a monkey and duck intimately massage each other for half a minute, and last but not least, an entire episode that feels like a bad ASMR video where absolutely nothing happens, and the highlight is when Dexter and Dee Dee blink slightly out of sync. Again, these seasons aren't too bad. They not only appealed to my awful sense of humor, but they also gave us the Rhyme That Hog song, so it's a hard thing to truly hate. It's a story that's been told again and again for the past 15 years. SpongeBob SquarePants creator Steven Hillenburg planned to end the series after the 2004 theatrical film simply because running the show had become too exhausting. The crew from the first 3 seasons can attest to having worked around the clock to make these episodes as beloved as they are today, though there were some clear signs towards the end of the original batch that they were really running low on ideas. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie was written with the intention of being the last hurrah for the franchise, being set to take place at the end of the SpongeBob timeline. I didn't know such a timeline even needed to exist, but Nickelodeon did not want to put an end to one of their fastest growing hits, so they brought in a new crew led by some members of the old guard to keep SpongeBob alive. I did a whole video speculating about what exactly happened to the quality of the show from this point on, but the bottom line is I'm very glad that it's still around today. Maybe it would be regarded as a better show nowadays if it had ended at its height, but now it's gotten the chance to be introduced to multiple generations of kids. SpongeBob would not have its massive universal appeal if it was taken off the air 15 years ago. No matter how you feel about its last 9 seasons of episodes, pop culture and even internet culture would not be the same. We live in a world where I can walk into any hot topic, you know, whenever I'm feeling like tapping into my emo side, and buy a replica of Squidward's bold and brash painting. And I wouldn't want things any other way.
We all know any TV show that's even slightly good gets canceled. Sometimes 2 or 3 times.
No cartoon struggled more to stay alive than Futurama ever did. Fox never liked the series much to begin with, despite it having one of the biggest rating debuts in the network's history. Episodes were constantly thrown around different time slots, preempted by sports ball games, and aired out of order. Futurama was canceled in 2003 after 4 seasons and 72 episodes. A respectable run for any show, but this was where the series following it found a new audience in reruns on Adult Swim and DVD, and that was enough to convince Fox to bring Futurama back. First in the form of 4 direct-to-DVD movies, and then a second 52-episode run that aired across 4 years on Comedy Central, since that network had the rights to rerun the show after 2008. If this pattern for television resurrection sounds familiar, it's because Family Guy followed nearly the same path to come back on the air, Adult Swim reruns and DVD movies included. I know many aren't very fond of Funny Guy family moments later episodes, but I actually liked Comedy Central era Futurama. The humor and characterization wasn't as sharp, but the highs were usually series highs. They were able to perfect the series finale, while also leaving things open for one more go-around. Outside of a crossover or a mobile game here and there, and with Disenchantment taking its title of Matt Groening's other show, along with most of its former staff, it appears that the Planet Express crew made their final delivery 6 years ago. Futurama's unusual legacy is a testament to its quality. No other TV series, animated or otherwise, can say that they lasted 14 years on the air across 2 formats and 3 networks. After having written 4 episodes to potentially be series finales, it certainly knew how to say goodbye. I used to wish that all my favorite cartoons would never end, but then I learned why they say that you should be careful what you wish for. The Fairly OddParents was canceled at least 4 different times, with it being consistently brought back a year or so later. Nickelodeon originally planned to kill 2 birds with 1 stone by ending both Bop and The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron with their 3rd crossover special, The Jerkinators. While that was a memorable outing, not completely for intended reasons, it did nothing to properly cap off either show involved. Luckily, both were able to make a comeback. Fairly OddParents got a new season that introduced an unpopular main character, and Jimmy Neutron got Planet Sheen. So it was a win-win for both.
I see you! There you are, Sugar Feet!
After an unusually short Season 8, Nickelodeon let the show go a second time. That set of 5 episodes resolved some loose ends, or what-if scenarios, but the one that was always the strangest to me was Timmy's secret wish, where it's revealed that Timmy had wished for everything to stay exactly the same for 50 years, and we have been watching a 60-year-old man masquerade as a child for 10 years. It probably would have been more controversial if the next season didn't do something much worse. Ruined the incredible track record of the animated talking dog sidekick by introducing a joke from The Simpsons into the main cast. Season 9 would also be a possible ending point. This season finale introduced Anti-Sparky, who is evil because he has a British accent.
Sparky! I thought I'd never see you again!
Sparky was never seen again after this episode. I already covered the true final episode a year back, and talked about how it made no effort at all to wrap up the show properly, confirming the best episode that the Fairly OddParents could have ever ended on was just a random special from Season 4. Though it failed to reach Nickelodeon's extremely high standards for success time and time again, there was never another show that they thought could replace its status as SpongeBob's Second Banana. That all changed when the Loud House shattered expectations right out of the gate when Fairly OddParents was in the midst of its 10th season and at a ratings low. While other shows on this list proved that they could shake things up and still be entertaining, forcing audiences to get to know brand new main characters was not the way to do it, and neither was this.
I wish I was Drake Bell!
No, Timmy, don't do it! Good thing I'll never have a live-action adaptation where I'm like a human or something. Come meet me live in person at Momocon in Atlanta, Georgia next weekend on the 25th and 26th. I'll be co-hosting an animation showcase panel with my cartoon community brethren on Saturday at 4 p.m. in the Omni Hotel, showcasing some great new stuff from tons of online artists and animators. There's gonna be all new footage from projects like Has Been Hotel and Long Gone Gulch, as well as free posters, so don't miss it. Make sure to add the panel to your schedule on the Momocon app if you're attending. Hopefully, I'll see you at the con. But for me, getting there might be a bit of a pickle, if you know what I mean. Hopefully this plug didn't ruin the countdown, though I think it's only fitting for this video to go on for longer than it should, given what we've learned today.
I learned that adding advertisements at the end of a video is a cheap way to get the runtime past 20 minutes.
You're riding that hog. Yeah. You're riding that hog. You're riding that hog. Get it, Fred.